Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, a story that has gripped the masses since the first book debuted in 1954. What is at the heart of this story that has been so compelling for so many, and why? Just a quick reminder to like and subscribe as it helps the channel greatly. Now, back to the video. At the start of the tale, we learn that the Dark Lord Sauron makes the rings of power for the men and dwarfs of Middle-earth, offering them great power. However, Sauron deceived them all. He made one ring to rule them all, enslaving them to his will, including the elves who had their own rings of power. Sauron is defeated, but his spirit lives on through the one ring of power, which does nothing but corrupt those who come into contact with it in order for it to be reunited with its master. We learn that this history is largely forgotten and becomes nothing more than a legend for a lot of Middle-earth. But while this has been forgotten by the masses, the spirit of Sauron spreads across the land and is building a dark force which threatens to overwhelm Middle-earth once again. What's fascinating about this idea is that it symbolizes a deep human experience which plays out on both individual and collective levels. The experience being symbolized is the influence of the unconscious psyche over an individual and collective. The unconscious has a powerful ability to influence the unwitting conscious mind. This is because the psyche is made up of both the conscious and unconscious, so inevitably forces from within the unconscious will bubble up and influence the feelings and behaviors of individuals until they learn to make them conscious and integrate them. In fact, the longer something is unconscious, the more influence it can actually have over an individual. This is due to unconscious feelings and thoughts being unchecked, allowing them to fester and grow over time. From this perspective, Sauron can be thought of as that which is unconscious or repressed, spreading and influencing the psyche, unchecked by the conscious self. One classic way we see this play out on the collective level is forgotten history. This can be a dangerous occurrence within societies because when history is forgotten, it has an uncanny ability to repeat itself. Unless we learn from our experiences, we won't be able to integrate them and change. Forgotten history repeating itself is the unchecked unconscious influencing the conscious on a mass scale. What's fascinating and troubling about this is that it implies that we as a collective have forces moving within our depths. If these forces remain unconscious and unintegrated, they can wreak havoc on societies. In fact, this is very much the essential idea of Carl Jung's theory of the shadow. The shadow is all the repressed and feared parts of the psyche that are buried in the unconscious. On the other end of the story, we have Frodo, the hero of the tale. He is a hobbit who lives in the Shire, an idyllic and quaint village in Middle-earth. Unbeknownst to him, his uncle Bilbo has the Ring of Power. Ultimately, Bilbo leaves the Ring of Power to Frodo, and the revelation of its terrible past makes itself known, launching Frodo onto an epic journey to Mordor to destroy the ring. The Shire is a perfect symbol of childhood. It is sweet, innocent, and unassuming. Bilbo even talks to the great wizard Gandalf about Frodo still being in love with the Shire and its sweet environment. So we now have the forgotten spirit of Sauron, a terrible force of the past living on through the Ring of Power spreading across Middle-earth. Then we have Frodo, an innocent hobbit still very much in the comfort of childhood who inherits this terrible forgotten emblem of the past which threatens to once again empower those old dark forces. This compels Frodo onto an epic and perilous journey in which he must overcome many obstacles and defeat the spirit of Sauron. There is a profound and eternal outline of psychological development and maturation symbolized in this story. Frodo must go forth and leave the comfort and safety of childhood into the great unknown with all its perils. There is an aspect to this which symbolizes the venture into the unconscious. The conscious self discovering unknown territories and integrating them, which is what leads to psychological maturation. What's so interesting about this is the seemingly cyclical nature of humanity in this process. As mentioned earlier, the forgotten spirit of Sauron can be understood as forgotten history, which typically leads to history repeating itself. This of course isn't a good thing, and yet the phenomenon of darkness presenting itself seems to compel the journey of development. Had it not been for Bilbo coincidentally finding the ring on his travels, it would never have found its way to Frodo. While this is a terrible burden for Frodo, it is what forced him out of the Shire, childhood, and onto the heroic journey of development that not only saves him, but the world. This is the promise. There is a great moment with Gandalf and Frodo in the mines of Moria, in which Frodo wishes the ring had never found its way to him. Gandalf responds by saying, so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to do is to decide what to do with the time that is given to us. There are other forces in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. An optimistic reminder that when one shows up for the righteous call to face the darkness of their time, one will encounter great challenges, but also find great help and hope. What is so compelling about this archetypal narrative of psychological development is its insistence that we must take on the burden of the collective shadow, not only to make things right in the collective, but to develop as individuals. It indicates that the two come hand in hand. On the individual level, one must confront what lurks within their own unconscious and what has been forgotten within themselves to develop. Yet we must also as a collective confront our shadow and make sure we integrate it so that we can develop as a society and not repeat the mistakes of the past. Frodo is forced out of the Shire onto a quest beyond his capabilities. Yet because of his willingness to undertake this mission for the sake of Middle-earth, help comes his way in the form of the Fellowship. Frodo becomes wise along the journey, as exemplified in his ability to think ahead when he wears mithril chainmail, which saves his life in the mines of Moria. Frodo's development as an individual better equips him for his journey to Mordor, which, depending on his success, has the potential to affect the entirety of Middle-earth. As Lady Galadriel, one of the most powerful elves in Middle-earth, tells Frodo, even the smallest person can change the course of the future. The themes playing out in this story are incredibly deep and universal. They remind us of how deeply interwoven we all are, and of the profound responsibility to confront our own darkness as well as the world's. That it's in the decision to face the collective shadow that we are compelled to face our own darkness, which then develops and prepares us to overcome the darkness of the world. You've been watching Archetypal Wisdom. Remember to like and subscribe. Stay wise.